Welcome to the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast. I'm your host, Naomi Meredith, a former classroom teacher turned K-5 STEM teacher and coach. With over a decade of experience teaching and a master's degree in STEM leadership, I'm here to coach you throughout the year to help you gain back more time to create innovative experiences for your students. Today, I have a special treat for you, and I am so excited for you to hear from today's guest. Today, I am chatting with Kristie Reddick and Jessica Honaker, who are also known as the Bug Chicks. If you haven't heard of these wonderful, amazing women in STEM, then head on over to my kid podcast, The STEM Career Quest, and they are in episode 2 of season 1, where they tell kids all about being entomologists, their journey into their career, and all the amazing cool things that they get to do when exploring with bugs. But they don't just play with bugs all day. You are going to be hearing from Jessica and Kristie, where they explain how bugs and insects are a teaching tool, but it is so much more than that. We can literally talk for hours. We always talk a lot before we hit record and after we hit record. They are just so much fun. I told them if they are nearby where I live in Colorado, I would love to go see them in person. But they are doing so many amazing things in the science education space where they are influencing those positive mindsets and experiences for both students and for teachers. There are so many amazing takeaways in this episode. Their philosophy in education and what science can be definitely aligns with what I believe in as an educator. And I am so excited for you to hear it from them, the Bug Chicks, Kristie and Jessica. You're definitely going to love this episode. Well, thank you so much for coming back onto the Elementary STEM Coach podcast this time. I had both of you as guests on my STEM Career Quest podcast, and you were our inaugural episode. So that is really, really fun episode. Episode 2, episode 1 is about the podcast, but if you guys haven't listened to it, it's a really, really, really fun episode. But today we're actually talking to the teachers on the other side of things. So if you both wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and briefly what you are all about.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
My name is Kristie Reddick. I am one of the Bug Chicks. Jessica and I are entomologists. We got our master's degrees in entomology from Texas A&M University, and we started working together in grad school. And we knew that science education and using our how do I say this? Using our friendship, like our friendship got really, really strong and solid when we were in grad school because I brought Jessica with me to Kenya for part of my research, and we filmed and we lived in a tent for 6 months. It was a big deal, and we became besties. And we thought, let's work together and let's teach and make videos and inspire kids to get into science and also inspire people to feel capable. I think feeling capable in learning and feeling capable, especially in the sciences, is super important. And we use bugs to do that. So we use bugs to help people get over their fears and to help people feel capable.
And my name is Jessica Honaker. I'm the other Bug Chick. And like Kristie mentioned, we met in grad school, and we do both have research backgrounds. And I do want to add, I think that one of the ways that we're really able to connect with teachers and with students about bugs is that, Kristie used to be super afraid of spiders. I used to be kind of apathetic toward them. And we both kind of came to this realization that, arthropods and insects and spiders and they're all super important and everybody feels really, strongly about them one way or the other. And so it's a really good connection point for us in teaching, being able to bring the science and the emotion to our work.
Yeah. We work at the cross section of STEM and social emotional learning. So there's so much emotion when you're trying to feel capable, when you are feeling afraid of the subject, when you are feeling afraid of bugs or afraid of your own potential. And so it all blends together really, really beautifully. And because we're so enthusiastic about bugs, I sort of talk about it like we're erosion, we're just going to wear you down. And then underneath all of our sort of fortresses that we build up, I think there's some real wonder and some joy for the natural world, and bugs can really bring that out of people.
Absolutely. And I know not every single subject in science classes are all insects, but there are units. I know off the top of my head, K through 5, everybody has some sort of environmental science or learning about life cycles or those types of things. So there are definitely connections when it comes to bugs. And you talked about this just a little bit, but why do you think learning about entomology is important for kids? And I know you're so passionate about it, but why do you think so? Because you do teach kids in schools in person. Yeah. So what have you seen and noticed?
Well, you cannot move through this world as a human being without interacting with arthropods. This is the great thing about them. There is not one human on the planet who has not had an interaction with an arthropod. And so it's one of those things, kind of like food or music, that brings us together as humans, even though, like, at that point, I don't even care if people are afraid or if they're interested. It is a connection point. The other thing is that arthropods, and let's just say insects for right now, they really do create and drive the world forward. They create the healthy soils that grow our food. They pollinate, they decompose, they, even the predator systems are so vitally important, and they provide a food source for all of these other animals that people so easily profess that they love. And so I just think that insects are vitally important to not just the ecosystems that we walk around in, but also they have shaped human culture and human design and human inspiration since the dawn of human civilization. So I just think we don't recognize them, but they are ever present and very, very important.
Yeah, they do thankless work for us so that we can exist on this planet. And there's a really great quote that goes something along the lines of, if humans were to disappear, the earth would flourish. But if insects were to disappear, like, we would be toast. That's paraphrasing. I don't think toast is in that quote.
I know that E.O. Wilson said
but that's the
gist.
General gist.
Definitely
to go like super dark this early in the day, but
makes you think.
Yeah.
Right? The biggest
they're
takeaway.
Very, very important. Yeah, they're very, very important.
So you mentioned if kids are scared, like, you're like, it's fine, you can get over it. And you've even seen this with kids. I remember one of the stories you told on the STEM Career Quest podcast is when you had like upper elementary, you had the tarantula. What was her name? Was it Beyonce?
Beyonce. Her name's
Beyonce who jumped. But I won't give it away.
That was Cookie Monster.
Oh, that was Cookie
Monster, the blue one.
The blue one.
Tarantula, and then she jumped, and but the kids were really brave and everything. So, like, that's just one experience. But what are some ways that you all get kids excited about bugs in science? Like, what does it look like when you're with kids, or when you're with it might be different when you're with a school group, and when you're presenting? What does that look like when you're in those spaces?
I think first and foremost, when we come in and we have our arthropod zoo with us, they are all behind us in cages, which is important. This is something that, like, to us, it's like fairly obvious that they're in cages, but when you're confronted with something that might be scary, all sorts of scenarios play through your mind. And so we get lots of questions like, are they just roaming around? Like, where are they? What's happening?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we love to do is we love to set up the space for success. We put them behind us and we cover them with a tablecloth, because basically we need to set up some ground rules and some safety and some listening. And we don't need distraction of things behind us. That's just sort of like a teaching classroom culture kind of thing. And the first thing that we do is we ask questions about, how do you feel about bugs? And we do not censor. We do, like, if you don't like them, I want to hear it. Use your words. I want to hear the words that you use. If it's creepy, if it's gross, if it's this, if it's that, say it. Give it to us. You're not going to hurt our feelings. And that's powerful, because people want to be heard in how they feel about things because
and respected.
Exactly. Yeah. Like we're not here to turn people into entomologists. What we do is we use bugs to ignite that passion for learning and like I don't know if you've experienced this in a classroom. I think we all have as teachers or educators that sometimes students or audience members can just be sort of like a little dull and zombified. And my goal is I want everyone to know what it feels like to feel capable, number one, and number two, awake, alive, and alert. So if I can get students to feel awake, alive, and alert about something, and if we got live bugs, they're awake, alive, and alert. They don't know what's going to happen. So that's one thing. And then the next thing is proper boundaries and making sure that they know that we are not here to scare them. We are not here to do jump scares. We're not these people on the internet who grab animals and force them to sting us. We're not into that at all. That's the opposite of how we teach. We teach about wonder. We teach about curiosity. We teach about observation. We're not going to force you to touch anything. We're not going to force you to pet anything, hold anything. We are going to ask that you look. And we do a lot of word switching for students. So if they say creepy, we go, great. For the next hour, can you try to shift the word creepy to interesting? Can you shift the word ew to cool? Just put a K and an L on the end of that. It's fine. And because our words really do inform how we feel about things. And those are some of the techniques that we utilize right off the bat.
Yeah. And, as we go through our program, there can be like, we'll bring out like one of our beetles and people will be like, because they don't know quite what to expect once the beetle is then out. Right. And so being able to talk about like, this is why, it's moving like this. This is why it looks like this. Here's why it has this behavior. Like one of our death feigning beetles, if you mess with it, it'll lay on its back with its legs up in the air, and it plays dead. And we're like, here's why it does that. And then once it feels comfortable, it'll roll back over, and walk around. And if they don't know that that's why they roll over, they can be kind of like startled by that sudden swap to where they're then up and mobile on their hands.
Right.
And so just by we don't dumb down the science. And so explaining the behaviors, explaining the morphology helps students know what to expect. And like Kristie was saying, we build that kind of structure and we add the science into that structure. And students, no matter how old they are, really thrive with that because they kind of know what to expect and you build trust as you move along.
Yeah. Building trust is huge. And also allowing yourself to be vulnerable as an educator is huge. I will share that I used to be afraid of spiders when I was young. I mean, like cry for my dad, hot tears in my ear holes, laying frozen, and there's a camaraderie there. There's an understanding that it's not just like I woke up as a kid and was like, yay, bugs. I was pretty anti-bugs. And that by learning about them, I changed fear to fascination. That's something we've been saying for years and years and years. And so we model that strategy of it's okay to be afraid and you can't be brave without being afraid. And we're here with you the whole time. It's not like we're going to pop a cockroach in your hands and go get a latte, though that sounds wonderful. And also we keep it light. Like one of my favorite things to do in a workshop, because we teach so many of these workshops, is my goal is to make Jessica laugh in a workshop. If Jessica's laughing in a workshop, we're having a great time because it means that all of us together are in a really joyful experience. And
sorry, you're like, also, she's really funny. And so sometimes it's really hard.
And well, the kids are funny. I mean, you know this as a teacher. Like sometimes kids will say things that Jessica and I have to we have to
you have
just
to just stop.
you have to, and I can feel myself like tamping it down, like especially if it's like slightly inappropriate. You gotta tamp it down, and I'll like take it, and I'll hide it right back here.
Yeah.
And the minute we get into the parking lot with the doors closed, we're like, oh no. And it's joyful. And I think, you know what this reminds me of too, Jess, is that kids are people, kids are human beings. I think sometimes if you don't work with kids a lot, especially if you don't work with like large groups of kids, if you only maybe have your own kids or you're only used to, your nieces or nephews or whatever, it can be, you can forget that they're human beings, and you can tell when people don't like you, and kids can tell when you don't want to be there or when you're not into it. And I think because Jessica, like, kids can tell that we love teaching them. And what Jessica said about not dumbing it down, I'm really explicit with the way that I speak with children. And by explicit, I mean clear, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'll say things like, can you tell that we like teaching you? Great. We're not going to do anything that's going to hurt you. Also, this is our job. Would we get hired again if word got out that we did? And like, just
Can
like
you say the word
logic of it.
liability?
And I say, can you say the word liability? And it makes the adults laugh, and it's like really funny. But they can tell that we genuinely enjoy our work and our time with them, even if they're being chaos and rowdy. I love chaos and rowdy. And especially if the chaos and rowdy is about the thing you're bringing out. If you bring out an animal and they're like, whoa. Jess and I were teaching in Philly. Was it Philly, Jess? Or was it New York City?
We were in the Bronx, I think.
We were in the Bronx. Jess and I were teaching in the Bronx. It's one of our favorite teaching experiences we've ever had. Hundreds of kids in a dark gymnasium.
Very packed. Very sardy.
Very packed in hundreds of them. Pre-COVID times. Hundreds of kids in a like sneakers on squeaky gymnasium floors, like a chaos.
It was so dark.
It was so dark. I don't know what was happening. So it was like winter. It was like dark. And so we're showing slides and we're showing pictures and we're doing classification of arthropods, and we're talking about the difference between centipedes and millipedes. And we put up a picture of a centipede and the whole place exploded. These kids have never seen this centipede in their lives. They've never seen a desert centipede.
Like you could feel the floor vibrating.
I mean,
and like the projector screen was doing
things were bouncing. It was this explosion. But you know what? Every single student in that room was reacting to that. They were in it. They were awake, alive, and alert. And the teachers who were there were very upset about them being disrespectful. And to us, I'll let the chaos. To me, it's like one of those toys. I don't know if you know those toys that extend. It's a big ball sphere, and it like extends out, and then it comes back together. It's like this like puzzle piece circle. To me, that is the energy in a room. And I think it's because I have a degree in theater. Like my first degree is in theater. And so to me, my job is to be the conductor, is to orchestrate the energy in a room. And if I'm doing my job right, I let it go to a crescendo, and then I can bring it back, and then we focus. And Jessica and I are quite good at that. And I think because we allow for raucous joy in learning, that can be sometimes uncomfortable for principals and teachers who are joining us in our work. If you just let us, I almost said let us cook. Like I'm a Gen Z. I don't know what's happening to me right now. This is how you know we teach. So, like if you just let us do that, like that's the good stuff. I mean, and that's the stuff.
Yeah. And that's some of the stuff that helps us build that rapport, right? That allows us to make the connections with the students, because we've taught students, like we taught some students 10 years ago that still email us, and they still pop onto our Facebook page or whatever and make comments. And,
hey, you came to my class, hey, do you remember? We just went to a Girl Scout camp in Portland. We used to live in the West Coast.
Oh, it's just in Portland. It's beautiful.
It's lovely. It's lovely. We lived there for like 10 years and we would teach all these Girl Scout camps or Girl Scout troops. And there was a girl at this Girl Scout camp. We were doing a leadership summit for the older girls, 123 older girls outside, midsummer, 90 degrees, sitting on logs after the full day of camp. It was intense. And this girl piped up and said, you taught me when I was a brownie. She was now like a junior in high school. And brownies are like 7
the little
or something.
ones.
And so they and I used to be so afraid of bugs. And today I helped the brownies hold the bugs. And so it's like, it's that kind of stuff and teachers understand what we're talking about because you teach a student and they come, you were my favorite teacher, that connection. And even though we drop in only for an hour or maybe for a day or maybe for a week at a school, our job is to have that much of an impact in such a short time. That's our job. And the impact needs to be positive because a teacher can make or break how people move through the world.
Yeah. And you're definitely role models in a couple of ways, which like definitely to the kids, like you're modeling, like you're using insects as an avenue, but you're really modeling like how science can be exciting. And this is what we do. This is a possibility. And especially being women in STEM, that's such an exciting thing for kids to see. All kids to see that like there's different possibilities, but also for the teachers. And this kind of goes into the next thing where you're saying, hey, we want you awake, alive, alert.
Yeah.
Like that's something really great for teachers to see that science can be something else. I really connect with like the way that you're teaching because I would co-teach in classrooms. A lot were science-based. And I would call it like controlled chaos. Like I know exactly what's going on. Everything's fine. Like, and I'm not just saying that sarcastically. The kids are into it, but it was way louder than what the teachers would expect. And the classroom teacher thought, this is wrong. This is not how science should be. I'm like, oh no, like we were doing rocks and minerals. I remember one, and they were going through all the tests to see what their rock or mineral was. And so they had to make the observations and the color test, the scratch test. And it was loud. The kids are excited. They're talking about it. And the teacher didn't know like how to handle that. And I think that's really great. What you're doing is that teachers can say, this is another way science can be. And I know too, when we were talking before we hit record, what you have seen, with teacher trainings and what science like teacher training is. I know for me, I didn't get a lot of training in my program even with my master's, but with how to teach science in an engaging way. Could you guys talk more about that? Like what you've seen with teacher trainings, like just how science has been taught?
And I think too that this goes beyond how teachers are trained. I think this is sort of how the majority of people see science is that it's just a bunch of facts and you learn the facts and the facts don't change and you just add more facts and you add more facts. But science is not like it's static or wait, it's dynamic. There we go. And it it changes and it evolves and, it's a process. It's not just one thing just stays there. And so, I think that students and teachers alike are taught that when you learn science, you memorize the facts and you do everything by like rote process, like step 1, step 2, step 3. And then there's no venturing out beyond those steps. When science is really curiosity, science is asking questions about things that you see and things that you wonder about. And, and it doesn't always go in a linear direction.
And I'm thinking about those labs, Jess, like even when you do a lab, sometimes it's like, well, did you do it right? to get to this foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
Did you do the pH read and do the, and it's like, but that's not how science works.
Yeah.
Like nothing in science when you're actually doing it goes like and tie it with a little bow. And I think, I think forcing people to start with observation is one of the hardest things that we do. And we actually have tools that help teachers with this. Like we made a little flow chart about how to classify arthropods, and we took all the leg numbers out of it because people have all of this stored knowledge. And if we went, go out and observe a bug, right? They'll go, it's a dragonfly. You go, well, how do you know that it's a dragonfly? And you go, well, someone told me once that shape of thing is a dragonfly and it's got 6 legs, and I know that 6 legs is an insect. Great. Is there any other way of knowing this? Like, is there any other way of looking at this? And so we take away the leg counts and we take away all preconceived notions, and it forces you to answer this sort of rubric of questions. And it is just sort of resetting our brains to sit quietly and look and wonder. And as you observe, you have curiosity and you go, I wonder why that is. And then that is inquiry. And from inquiry, you go, well, how would I test that? Is that testable? And you have to drill down to an actually testable question. And it's easier than you think. It doesn't all have to be fancy contraptions and a lot of tools and a lot of things. I think one of the things that teachers can do to bring science process into the classroom is starting with observation and just run rampant with questions. You're not going to get to answer almost any of them, but wouldn't it be beautiful to see what questions come out of these amazing minds that think that haven't been taught yet to think in a specific way? Because that's the great thing about kids and questions is their questions are like, what?
Yeah.
And that's coming from observing things. They're natural scientists. They're naturally curious. And if we can glom onto that and if we can capitalize on that, then we're doing science.
And I think too that the idea that science is devoid of emotion is also like a hurdle to overcome, because people are not devoid of emotion and people do the science. And so
people created science.
Yeah. So, and so, what we were talking about early about teachers maybe feeling uncomfortable when students are getting like super excited and super loud and super into their projects, like keep that there. You want students to be really excited about the work that they're doing, because that is how they stay in those programs. That is how they stay in that work, is that they love it, they enjoy it, they're excited about it. And so being able to allow for some of that emotion and for it to be okay and acceptable to have that emotion is super important.
Yeah.
I also think the concept of getting really comfortable as a teacher with saying, I don't know, is powerful. Being able to say, I don't know, let's find out. I don't know. How would we find out about this? Turn it around, turn it into a challenge. And I understand also for any teachers out there who are like, I have curriculum to get through. I've got markers to hit. I've got start testing. I've got all the things that are happening for you. Absolutely. If you have these standards, like I'll just say NGSS standards for this right now, because they're pretty across the board, depending on where you are. Those NGSS standards are, sometimes they can feel like they box you in.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you kind of step back and definitely if you use some of the cross-cutting concepts, they really do open up lots of possibilities and creativity for you.
Yep.
And I really think beyond the life cycles and ecology and animal stuff, bugs fit into so many of them. Physics.
Yep.
Weather patterns.
True.
I mean,
yeah.
One of our specialties is how do we get bugs into every subject? I mean, there's a way.
There is.
There's a way to do it. And And I know that they're engaging for students. And so if that's your hook, like if you're like, oh, I think I could get into bugs and use them in my classroom, they can be a great hook for almost any subject. And just a callback to what we were talking about earlier about feeling capable. You know, one of the things that is a tenet in our business and in our work is 15 minutes ago, if you don't want to hold something, and now you've watched other people hold things and you've gotten to the point where you pet it, and then it almost always happens where a student will come up and go, okay, I think I'm ready. Can I hold it? And go, yeah. And you hold it. 15 minutes ago, you didn't want to do this. And now you're doing it. This is what feeling capable feels like. This is what I mean about being explicit, especially about the social emotional learning. What you are experiencing right now is you feel capable. I want you to remember what this feels like, because I want you to feel that about reading. I want you to feel that about math, because math and science go hand in hand. I want you to feel it about public speaking, about meeting new people, like all the things that people get kind of bound up about. Being able to identify that feeling of feeling capable is super important. And when we can tie it to learning and we can tie it to a classroom culture, it becomes a very powerful thing.
I love that. I know everybody is so like, oh, I need you in my classroom. Please come.
We go.
So for this, like, there's so many amazing takeaways. Like I was writing down notes, like there are a million things. So you guys go back and even listen to this again, because there's so many things that you can implement into your own space. And then you can also have the bug chicks come to you, but like see them in action. But again, just having them as the role model and just seeing a different way to approach science. Maybe it's been a little bit stagnant for you. When I teach STEM, I use science as my base. So when you said NGSS, I agree with how they open up projects. I made up my whole curriculum K-5 using the NGSS, because there are so many different possibilities, and just they're actually a really good way to kind of guide what you can do, like as a base, but it does open up like ways to look at the world. I really don't think they box you in too much. You just have to approach it in a different avenue.
It's a puzzle piece. You take a little of this, take a little of this, and glom it together.
Yes. But if teachers like, I want more bug chicks, I need them in my school, what kind of programs do you guys offer, and where can they find you?
So they can find us at our website, thebugchicks.com.
Or on social media. You can DM us on social media. We're at the Bug Chicks just about everywhere.
Basically, put in a Google search and you'll find us.
Yep. And so for schools, one of the things we're doing a lot of is, right now we're based in Cincinnati, Ohio. So we're within driving distance of a lot of places.
Yeah, you are.
How central we are. Districts will ask us to come, and we'll come do full assembly programs for schools. And we have microscopes and live animals, and it's very interactive and it's incredible and so much fun.
Yeah, we have K through 12 options for that.
Yeah, we have a couple different programs. So we can do career connections for older students. We can do we can do like straight biology of bugs, and we can also we have a really beautiful one for K-5 called Songs of Science. And it's about how insects communicate with each other. And we recreate a forest at night using noisemakers with students, and of katydids calling to each other and chirps. And it's so awesome. But we also put the animals underneath the microscope and you could see how they make the noises. It's so cool. It's so cool. So we have those. And then we also come in for smaller programs where it's like maybe just your classroom. And that's where we hold and pet and touch and do a lot more of the sort of interactive with the individual students. But we can also build a program that works for you. So we're going out to Seattle to teach a program. We are going to the Hamptons, like the east of Long Island, to teach a full week. Where else are we going? We might be going to Alaska to teach a full week.
Like next week.
Oh, wow.
No,
we'll see.
Things are
in the air.
Wow.
And so so yes, we are available, and this is something that we do all the time, and it's a joy for us, and it's also our life and our living, and we love to do it. So
Yeah.
right.
Yay. Well, my friend just accepted a science position. I was just Googled how far is Missouri from Ohio? Only 8.5 hours. So I'm going to tell her.
Yeah.
She works at a nature school now, which is so cool. So I'm going to make her listen to this episode.
Yeah. We usually combine it with, if you combine it with a couple schools or you combine it with a district, it makes the whole thing more cost effective. And we can stay and teach. We love to teach at a whole district.
Yeah.
And then that way everyone, an older sibling and a younger sibling have had an experience. It's a really cool thing to do.
And oftentimes we do community programs when we do those weeks. Because not everybody goes to the school that we teach. So, we'll do library programs or nature center programs or, things like that. So that we can then sort of reach a broader audience. So.
Oh, I love that. You girls are killing it. I love this so much. And thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your perspective. And just, you can tell, and I could tell on the other show too, but you can tell how passionate you are. You say that, but really the core of it and what you're doing, it's not, we teach about bugs. There's so much more behind what you're doing. Which I think is really important for teachers to hear. Not every program is like that at all. And definitely what you're doing totally aligns with how I think about science and STEM. And I need to come see you when you're presenting because this just sounds so amazing. So when you're near Colorado, let me know. I would love to pop in.
Yeah. I mean, we actually might have something in the works. People in Colorado are always like, we have a couple of schools in Colorado that are interested. Yeah.
Oh, good. Yay.
Cool.
Well, thank you so much for your time. And I know teachers are going to be so excited to check out your programs and even get more bug chicks with their kids. So thank you so much again.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast. I would love to connect with you over on Instagram at NaomiMeredith_ or send me an email to elementarystemcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure to check out my website, NaomiMeredith.com, to see all the show notes from today's episode and shop my K-5 STEM resources. Any questions you have, needs for resources, or ideas for episodes, get in touch. I'll talk to you soon.